The market on Kethra Prime was loud, hot, and cruel. Metal stalls lined the wide street, each one full of cages, chains, and blinking collars. The air smelled like oil, smoke, and fear. Voices rose and crashed like waves, buyers shouting prices, sellers yelling over one another, machines humming and hissing in the background. On a small metal stage near the center stood a blind alien woman. Her skin was a pale silver blue, with faint glowing lines running down her arms. Her long hair hung messy around her face, hiding the scars along her jaw. A thin metal collar circled her neck, humming with a low, cold sound. Her eyes were white and cloudy, seeing nothing. But her ears heard everything, every shout, every laugh, every cruel whisper. She trembled, her hands pulled close to her chest, wrists joined with a short length of chain. She stood very still because every time she moved too much, someone hit her. So now she learned to move as little as possible, to breathe as quietly as she could. Her husband stood beside her, tall and hard, with thick dark horns and cold yellow eyes. He wore fine armor and heavy rings on his fingers. He smiled at the crowd, not at her, never at her. "Look at this one," he called out, voice sharp and smooth. "Blind, yes, but still useful. She hears well, she obeys. She does not talk back, no trouble, you see." He grabbed her arm and jerked it up like she was a broken tool he was showing off. She stumbled and almost fell. A few people in the crowd laughed. A few looked bored. Many just looked hungry for a deal. Not for her. At the back of the crowd stood a human. He was not tall, not strong-looking. He wore simple brown clothes, a worn jacket, boots dusty from travel. His skin was a warm brown tone, his hair short and dark. His eyes were quiet and tired, but sharp. His name was Jonas, and he did not come to the market to buy anyone. He came to sell spare ship parts, simple things from a broken freighter. But when he heard the words blind and obedient, something made him stop. He watched as the husband pushed the woman forward again. "Hard enough to bruise. She listens well," the husband said. She sits. You say kneel, she kneels. You hit her, she does not fight back." The woman flinched at the word hit, even though no one struck her that second. The movement was small, but Jonas saw it. One alien in the crowd raised a hand. "How much?" "She looks weak. I'll need to feed her less." Another laughed. "Does she still cook? Clean? Or is she only good to shout at?" More laughter, more noise, more heat. The blind woman's heart pounded in her chest. She could not see their faces, but she could feel their eyes like claws on her skin. Her husband leaned down and hissed in her ear, "Stand straight, or I'll take the price out of your hide." She forced her back straight, forced her shaking legs to lock. Her fingers curled so tight her nails dug into her palms. Jonas felt anger burn in his chest. It was not a loud anger, not the kind that made you scream. It was the quiet kind, heavy and deep. The kind that remembered things, remembered war, remembered bodies, remembered people treated like things. He did not like to remember. That was why he left his world, why he came to this corner of the galaxy where no one knew his name. But some memories never really leave. The bidding started. The husband called out a price. Someone shouted a lower number. Another offered a bit more. It was a game to them. A game with a living piece on the table. "Come on," the husband barked. "She is worth more than that. She can work. She can serve. She doesn't complain." Jonas watched her head hang lower with each word. She was not looking for hope. She was just trying to survive the day, to survive the next hands that would take her. Then, when a buyer shouted something about testing her obedience in front of the crowd, the husband laughed and lifted his hand as if to strike her for show, to prove she would not resist. Jonas moved before he could think. "Stop," he said, his voice calm but firm, cutting through the noise like a clean line. The husband paused, annoyed. "What do you want, human?" Jonas stepped closer, his heart beating fast, but his face steady. He looked at the blind woman, not at her scars, not at her cloudy eyes, but at the way she held herself like she expected pain. "How much?" Jonas asked. The crowd went quiet. For a moment, then murmurs started. A human buyer? Is he serious? He doesn't look rich, the husband sneered. You? You can't afford her. He named a high price, a number that made a few in the crowd scoff. Jonas did not argue. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small credit chip. It was most of what he had. Savings for a better ship. A better life. He placed it on the table without looking away from the woman. Done, he said. The scanner beeped. Payment accepted. The husband blinked, surprised. Then he laughed. Fine, she's yours, human. Good luck with the useless thing. He unlocked the collar with a click. The weight around the woman's neck changed. The chain fell away from her wrists. Cold metal leaving hot, sore skin. She swayed, confused. Her hands floated in the air, not sure where to go, not sure what freedom even felt like. Then she felt it. A hand, warm and gentle, not grabbing, just offering. Jonas touched her arm lightly. It's okay, he said softly. I won't hurt you. Come with me. She froze. Her old owner had never used that voice, never used those words. Behind them, the husband snorted and turned away, already thinking about his next deal, the blind. Alien woman took a slow, shaking breath. Her world was still dark, still full of fear, but there was something new in it now. Something strange, a human hand, and a promise she did not understand yet. As Jonas led her carefully off the metal stage and away from the market noise, one thought repeated in her mind like a small, frightened whisper. Why would a human waste money on me? What will he do to me now? Asterisk. The small house stood alone on the edge of the dusty alien town. It wasn't rich, it wasn't big, but it was clean, warm, and quiet. The blind alien woman sat on the soft floor near the door, her hands wrapped tightly in the blanket the human gave her. She didn't understand what was happening yet. No chains, no shouting, no orders. She was waiting for pain, for control, for someone to yell. That was all she had ever known. Jonas, the human, moved slowly in the kitchen space, making something warm to eat. He didn't talk too much, only spoke when needed. His voice was low and kind, not sharp, not cold. He came near and placed a warm mug near her hand without touching her. She flinched anyway, her body stiff. It's tea, he said gently. Don't worry, it's yours. She didn't answer, just listened. Her ears searched his words for lies or danger, but found nothing, only soft air. I'm Jonas, he added. You don't have to tell me your name, not yet, not until you want to. The silence between them felt strange, not heavy, just still. She slowly reached out with one hand, her fingers searching. Finally, they found the mug. It was warm and smelled like something sweet and earthy. She pulled it close but didn't drink. She was still afraid it might be a trick later. Jonas showed her the space, not with orders or dragging her, but by standing beside her, letting her hold his arm if she wanted. This is the table, he said, letting her fingers find the edges. 2 steps this way is the bed. I'll sleep on the couch. It's not great, but it's okay. Why? She whispered without meaning to. He paused, then said softly, because you deserve a safe place to sleep. No one had said that to her before, not even her own family. When night came, she sat on the edge of the bed and listened. Jonas lay on the couch across the room. He snored softly. His breathing was real, nor fake like her husband used to do before hurting her. She wrapped herself in the blanket and tried to sleep, but her mind was full of questions. Why did this human buy her? Why hadn't he touched her yet? What did he want from her? She didn't know how to feel in the morning. He was already cooking. The smell of warm food filled the air, and her stomach growled. She hated that it made noise. It reminded her of shame. But Jonas only smiled when he heard it. There's enough for both of us, he said. Come sit. I'll help you. He guided her hand gently to the chair, never pushing, never rushing. She sat slowly, unsure if she was doing it right. He placed a bowl in front of her and a spoon, then helped guide her fingers to find them. You don't have to finish it, he said. Just try a little. It was hot and tasted better than anything she remembered. After breakfast, he brought out a small stick with bells on it. He shook it gently and said, I want to teach you something, not as a command, but maybe it helps. She tilted her head in confusion. He placed the stick on the floor. It rings when you bump into it. We'll place them around corners so you know where not to walk. We'll make the house friendly for your steps. Tears filled her clouded eyes. Not from pain, but from the quiet way he said "we" that afternoon. She walked 5 steps without holding the wall that evening. She smiled once, just for a second, when he told her a silly earth joke. That night, she whispered her name. To him, Nursery, she said, her voice trembling. My name is Nursery. Jonas nodded from across the room. Nursery, that's a good name. For the first time in a long time, she slept without fear. But outside, someone was watching. A figure stood hidden across the street, eyes locked on the small home. They tapped a communicator and whispered, The blind wife has been located. She is with a human. Back inside. Nursery shifted in her sleep, unaware that her past was already trying to drag her back. But now she had a name, a blanket, and a human who hadn't hurt her, not even once. And that meant more than anyone outside could understand. Nursery was learning how to walk through the house by counting steps. Every corner had a soft bell or small sound marker, placed carefully by Jonas. Now she could feel the rhythm of safety. 4 steps to the table, 6 to the couch, 2 to the door. She started to move without clinging to the walls. Her hands still trembled sometimes, but not like before. She was still blind. But she wasn't helpless, not anymore. Jonas helped her each day, never rushing, never raising his voice. He let her do things slowly, her way, always reminding her, You're safe here, Nursery. And somehow, those 4 words meant more than anything. But peace doesn't last long when the past is cruel. That morning, just as Nursery was placing a small plant by the window, a loud bang shook the front door. Jonas rushed forward, opened it and froze. 2 tall alien officials in dark armor stood outside, and behind them, Nursery's old husband, the same man who sold her, the same voice she thought she'd never hear again. Her body went stiff, her legs weak. Nursery, the husband said, voice oily and fake sweet. There you are, you didn't say goodbye. She backed away, heart racing. She couldn't see him, but her body remembered the shape of his cruelty. The taller official raised a glowing pad and spoke to Jonas. We are here for the female. She was not legally transferred through proper alien channels. Her former partner, her rightful owner, has filed to reclaim her. She's not property. Jonas said firmly, She's a person. She has a name. The second officer replied coldly, Alien customs are clear, unless full council-cleared paperwork is filed. Any previous owner may demand return within 30 days. Nursery clutched Jonas's sleeve like it was the only thing keeping her from falling. I don't want to go, she whispered. Please. Don't let them take me. Jonas looked at her, then turned back to the officers. You're not taking her. The husband laughed. You think you can stop me, human? You think your soft words matter? She is mine. She was never yours. Jonas said, stepping in front of Nursery. Not truly, and she won't be again. The officials looked at each other. You have 3 days to respond. File legal resistance, or she must be returned by force. They handed Jonas a red-stamped document and walked away. The husband gave one last glare before turning. She's coming back, whether you like it or not. The door closed, and for a long moment, the house was silent. Nursery sat down slowly, her fingers trembling. He'll hurt me again, she whispered. They'll chain me again, and I'll disappear. No, Jonas said softly, kneeling beside her. Not while I'm alive. That night, Jonas contacted the planetary legal system, searching for every rule, every path to keep her safe. He talked to human advocates, local officials, even other aliens who had once fought the same fight. But every answer came with the same warning. The system is slow, and her ex is powerful. Nari overheard the conversations, and deep inside, a tiny voice began to speak, a voice that asked if she could ever truly be free. She walked to Jonas's side, reached for his hand and said, "If you give me back, I won't blame you. It's not fair to you." Jonas didn't answer right away. He looked at her, then gently placed his hand over hers. "You didn't ask to be sold, or beaten, or owned," he said, "but you are here now. And as long as you are, I'll stand between you and the people who hurt you." Tears ran silently down her cheeks. She couldn't see him, but she could feel the truth in his voice. 3 days, that was the time the system gave them. But in the dark shadows outside, her old husband wasn't waiting for court. He was sending messages, calling favors, paying men who didn't care about papers, only power. And as the sun set behind the quiet little house, a shadow passed across the window. Someone was watching again. Someone who didn't plan to wait 3 days. Nari laid down that night with her hand wrapped in Jonas's. Her heart beat with fear, but also something else, something new, hope. She didn't know what would happen next. But this time, she wasn't alone, and that changed everything. Nari stood quietly near the door, feeling the soft breeze brush against her face. She couldn't see the morning light, but she could feel it. The warmth on her skin, the sound of birds in the distance, the way the air smelled clean. Since she came to this house, she had changed slowly. Carefully, step by step, Jonas had shown her how to use her hands and feet like eyes. He placed soft bells on corners, gave her textured floor tiles near the walls, and even built a guide rail for her to follow to the garden outside. Each small thing made her world feel bigger. He never treated her like a burden. He never called her slow. He never touched her without asking. He just let her be human, even though she wasn't. And that was more than anyone had ever done. That afternoon, Jonas set a table outside. Where the sun could reach, he placed 2 chairs and warm food, and helped Nari walk to it, step by step. Her hands reached out and found the chair. She sat down and smiled faintly. "You're getting faster," Jonas said, sitting across from her. "I count the steps now," she said. "I remember sounds, smells, even shadows." He looked at her amazed. "You see more than most people with 2 eyes." She tilted her head. "Do you always say such strange things?" Jonas laughed for the first time in days. The sound made her chest feel light. But far from them, trouble was already moving. The ex-husband was done waiting. He met with 3 silent men in a dark room, paid them with untraceable credits, and gave them clear orders. "Take her, kill the human if you must. Just don't let anyone see you." That night, Nari woke suddenly. Her ears caught something metal moving, a door's soft rattle. She froze, heart racing. Then Jonas appeared at her side, whispering, "Stay behind me, don't make a sound." She followed the sound of his breathing as he backed toward the hallway. From the window, he saw a shadow move, 1 figure, then 2, all dressed in black. No faces showing, moving like ghosts. Jonas locked the door, grabbed a small plasma cutter from the drawer, and held it tight. "They're not officers," he whispered. "They're here to take you." Nari shook, panic rising in her chest. "He sent them," she whispered. "He's not waiting for court." Another bang at the back of the house. The attackers were trying both sides. Jonas led her quickly through the hallway, past the bells, down a hidden back door he had prepared for emergencies. The wind was cold outside, but there was silence for a moment. Nari gripped his jacket, her fingers digging into the fabric. "Where?" "To the old maintenance shed. Just hold my hand." But as they reached the yard, a shadow stepped into their path, one of the attackers, holding a shock baton. Jonas pushed Nari behind him, but the man struck fast. The baton slammed into Jonas's shoulder, sending pain through his arm. He dropped to 1 knee, teeth gritted. "No!" Nari screamed, and without thinking, she grabbed the garden bell Jonas had made for her and threw it. It struck the attacker's mask with a sharp clang. Confusing him for a split second, Jonas tackled him low, knocking the baton away, and dragged Nursery into the shed, locking the door behind them. They were breathing hard. Blood on Jonas's sleeve, dust in the air. Nursery crouched beside him, her hand on his chest. "You're hurt. I'm okay," he said, though his voice was tight. "We can't go back," she said softly. "Not now. I know," he answered, "but I won't let them take you." In that moment, inside a dusty old shed, Nursery realized something she had never dared believe. Jonas wasn't just protecting her, he believed in her, and maybe she could believe in herself too. Outside, footsteps crunched in the dirt. More were coming, but inside the shed, two souls held each other, wounded, frightened, but stronger than they were yesterday. The past had come for her, but this time she was not going to be taken without a fight. The courtroom was cold, wide, and full of tall walls and watchful eyes. It wasn't built for comfort. It was built for control. The chairs were metal. The air smelled like machine oil and dust. And on the center platform stood Nursery, the blind alien woman who was once sold like trash. Jonas sat beside her, his arm still bandaged from the fight. He wore clean clothes, his back straight, but his face was tight with worry. All around them sat council members, alien leaders from many races. Some looked curious, some looked bored, and some looked angry. In front of them stood Nursery's ex-husband, with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue. "She is my property," he said confidently. "She was never released through official customs. This human stole her," the council whispered among themselves. Papers shuffled, but Jonas stood up and spoke. Before they could answer, "She is not a thing. She is a person," he said loudly. "You call her weak because she is blind, but I have seen more strength in her than in any soldier I've known." The council leader, a tall alien with glowing skin, raised a hand. "Silence, human. This is not about emotions. This is about law." Nursery sat still, hands on her lap, head slightly bowed. The room felt like a cave swallowing her whole. Council turned to her ex-husband. "Why do you want her returned?" "You sold her. She was mine," he said flatly. "Blind or not, she is bonded to me by the old contract. The human has no right to keep her." Jonas stood again, his voice more firm now. "Then let her speak. Let her say what she wants." Silence followed, long and heavy, until the council leader finally said, "Agreed, let the female speak." All eyes turned to Nursery. Her heart pounded so loud she thought everyone could hear it. She had never spoken for herself in a room full of power. Her voice had always been covered, silenced, ignored. Jonas touched her shoulder gently and whispered, "You don't have to be perfect, just be honest." She slowly stood up, her knees shaking, her hands gripping the edge of the chair. "My name is Nursery," she said, her voice small. "I was born without sight. My people thought I was broken. Some council members leaned forward, surprised she was even speaking. "I was told I was a burden." She continued, "My husband didn't speak to me. He gave orders, hit me when I moved too slow, locked me in rooms for days, and then sold me." Gasps and murmurs echoed through the room. But Nursery didn't stop. Her fingers trembled, but her words grew clearer. "The human you see here never shouted at me, never raised a hand, never made me feel small. He gave me shoes so I wouldn't cut my feet. He taught me how to move again, to live again." Her voice cracked, but she kept going. "He never asked for anything in return, only that I try, and I did." She turned her head toward the council, her cloudy eyes glowing faintly in the courtroom lights. "For the first time in my life I was not afraid to speak." The room went quiet. Even her ex-husband said nothing now. "I am not a thing," she finished. "I will not go back to him." The council leader stood, looking around the room slowly. "Alien customs are ancient," he said, "but so is truth." He looked at Nursery. "You may choose where you belong," without pause. Nursery turned slightly and reached out for Jonas's hand. "With him," she said softly, "if he still wants me." Jonas looked at her like she was the only light in a dark room. "I do," he said, voice shaking. The council banged the decision. Tablet. The claim is broken. The human and Nursery are free. But not everyone looked pleased in the corner. A shadowed figure stood, arms crossed, eyes narrowed. Her ex-husband's allies were still watching. Jonas and Nursery left the courtroom quietly, not celebrating, just holding hands in silence. Outside, Nursery tilted her face toward the warm sun. She still couldn't see, but for the first time, she felt seen, and that was a beginning, not an end. The sun had barely risen when Jonas opened his eyes. He was still holding Nari's hand as she slept beside him. Curled up in the safety of the warm blanket they now shared, the court had ruled in their favor, but peace did not follow. The next day, Jonas received a quiet message from a contact at the legal center. She's free by law, but her ex has influence beyond law. Be careful. They're angry. Jonas didn't tell Nursery the full message, not yet. Instead, he started preparing, quietly packing a small bag with credits, documents, survival gear, and food supplies. He didn't want to run, but he had seen this kind of danger before. Kind that doesn't knock, just breaks in. Meanwhile, Nursery continued learning new things each day. She could now walk across the whole house with ease, find cups, fix tea, even place small flowers on the table from the garden without help. Voice had grown stronger, her face softer, but that morning, something felt different. Jonas noticed it when he stepped outside and saw the sky drone hovering above, a silent type used only by private guards. It circled once, then vanished into the clouds. Jonas stepped back inside, face tense. We might have to leave soon, he said quietly. Nursery paused mid-step. Leave? Some people don't follow the law, especially when power and money are involved, he said. I think your ex is sending people again. Nursery lowered her head. I don't want you to be hurt again. Jonas looked at her. We run only if we must. But I won't leave you behind, never. That night, they slept in shifts. Jonas kept watch near the window with his small scanner. Nursery rested lightly, her body on alert even in sleep. Just past midnight, the sound came, a low hum outside. The walls, like small engines. Jonas moved fast, grabbing the bag and slipping a short-range blaster into his belt. He helped Nursery to her feet and guided her toward the back escape route they had planned. But as they reached the rear gate, a beam of red light lit up the yard. Two masked men blocked their path. One raised a weapon. Jonas shielded Nursery with his body, yelling, She's not going with you. The attackers didn't respond, just moved closer. Nari's breath shook, but she whispered, Turn left, 4 steps, tree root, dip. Jonas followed her voice, dodging just in time as a shot fired and missed. They ran into the shadows, through the garden path she had memorized with her feet and hands. The attackers followed, fast and silent, but Nari's voice guided Jonas. Duck now. Turn at the bell. Steps careful. They reached the old field shed again and slipped inside, locking the door. Jonas slid to the floor, heart pounding. You saved us, he said breathlessly, looking at her. No, she whispered. You taught me how, but it wasn't over. They heard the attackers trying to disable the lock. Jonas activated a beacon, an emergency human distress signal, one that pinged to nearby allied ships and aid responders. We may have 10 minutes, he said, voice tight, but if they break in. Nursery placed her hand on his. Then I want to fight for myself this time. Jonas stared at her. She was still blind, still gentle, but no longer the same trembling soul who was sold on a stage. 10 minutes passed like hours. Footsteps outside. Sparks flying from the lock, then a loud warning siren from above. 2 responder drones dropped from the sky, flashing blue lights and scanning the area. The attackers vanished into the dark, fleeing as sirens echoed through the air. Jonas exhaled sharply, body collapsing against the wall. They were safe. For now. Later that night, Nursery sat beside Jonas under the stars. The wind cool, the sky wide. I don't want to run forever, she whispered. You won't, he said. We'll find a place where no one owns anyone, where you can be free and safe. I want that, she said. But only if you're there too. Jonas smiled and took her hand. Then we go together, always. The fear hadn't ended, but something else had begun. A choice, made together, not in chains but in love. The small shuttle lifted off quietly from the edge of the valley, below. The house they once called home faded into a memory. Its broken door, cracked walls, and scorched ground told a story of the danger they had survived. But Nari didn't look back. She couldn't, and she didn't need to. Beside her sat Jonas, bruised, tired, but alive. His hand held hers gently, not as a protector or a master, but as a friend who had chosen to stay no matter the risk. Ship hummed softly around them, the pilot nodding once. Next stop, Aaron 3, human protected settlement zone. No chains, no ownership laws, no records pulled from old contracts. Jonas turned to Nuri. It's a fresh start, she nodded slowly. Then let's not waste it. They arrived 2 days later, stepping out into a small settlement, built with care not power. The people were mixed humans, aliens, hybrids, all moving with kindness. Not fear, no guards, no cages, only work and rest, homes and laughter. Jonas and Nari were given a quiet home with a garden space, tools, and a free registration badge. No numbers, just their names. But Nari still didn't feel at peace, not yet. She had escaped chains, escaped violence, escaped the shadows of her past. But she hadn't yet found what freedom truly meant to her. One morning, she stood outside, barefoot in the grass. Her hands felt the wind. Her ears caught the rustling of leaves. Her lips moved as she repeated the sounds Jonas taught her. Soft steps, open air, no fear. Jonas watched from the doorway, knowing not to interrupt her process. That evening, a community council invited them to a meeting. A human elder asked each new arrival to share something, a story, a truth, or a vow. Nari hesitated as the circle turned to her. But then she stood slowly. I come from a place where I was sold, she said, her voice clear. Not because I was weak, but because others thought I was. The group listened closely, silence respectful. I was told I had no value, she continued. I was passed, beaten, chained until a human bought me. But he never owned me. He waited, taught, and never once raised his hand. Jonas lowered his head humbly. Nari took a breath. Today I want to say this, not as a victim, but as a person. I will not hide anymore. I will not be quiet, and I will never again let someone else decide who I belong to. She turned slightly toward Jonas, her fingers reaching out for his. I choose my own path now, she said, voice steady. And if he still wants to walk it with me, then let that be our story. The room fell quiet, and then softly, someone began to clap. Others followed gentle applause, full of warmth, not noise. After the meeting, Jonas and Nari walked back home under the stars. She leaned against his shoulder and whispered, "Thank you for waiting, for not breaking me when I was already broken." Jonas looked at her and said, "You were never broken, Nari. Just locked. I only helped find the key." She smiled, tears touching her cheeks but falling with peace, not pain. The next morning, Nari woke before the sun, walked to the garden, and planted her first seed. Her own hands, her own place, her own future. And when Jonas walked up behind her, she took his hand, just like she did on the day they met. But this time, there was no fear in her fingers, only love. Her story no longer began with pain. It began with choice, and that made all the difference.